so today we are talking about muscle fiber types, the distribution of these muscle fiber types in humans, and the way that they can kind of vary from person to person. So we have 3 muscle fiber types in our skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is like your biceps, your triceps, your abdominals, quads, hamstrings. That's what we typically think of a muscle. That's your skeletal muscle. There's 3 different fiber types within that skeletal muscle: type 1, type 2A, type 2X. They're duped slow twitch muscle fiber type and fast twitch muscle fiber type because of their properties and the way that they work. So let's start with the slow twitch muscle fiber type, which is type 1. And it's called slow twitch muscle fiber type because it's fatigue resistant. It can go and go and go for a very long time without becoming fatigued. Fatigue resistant. Think of an endurance runner who can run and run and run for hours on end, right? Their muscles aren't fatiguing out because they can keep going. Think of that same endurance runner. They're probably pretty slender, right? They have as least mass as possible on their body so that they can move very efficiently for miles and miles on end, right? So those muscle fibers in type 1 are actually very small, so that the mass of that muscle fiber type is not pounds and pounds and pounds. It's small, it's compact, it's efficient. It doesn't weigh that much. They have lower force output, so that's kind of the trade-off for being fatigue resistant and smaller. They don't produce that much force. You're not moving mountains with them. But that being said, they have a high mitochondrial density, which is really important for being able to go and go and go for a long time. And for an endurance athlete, you want a lot of mitochondrial density because the more mitochondria you have in your cells, the more energy you can convert into ATP, and ATP is what's going to keep us going and going and going, again, so that we don't fatigue and we can keep supplying those muscles with the ATP and they can keep moving and working for us. So that's type 1. Think of an endurance athlete. Type 2A, right in the middle between the type 1 and type 2X. They are fatigue resistant a little bit, but they're not as fatigue resistant as type 1. They're medium size. Inherently, you can grow them by hypertrophy training, resistance training. Unlike type 1, you really can't grow your type 1 muscle fibers. You can't really make them bigger, again, because they want to be small, they want to be efficient. You can grow type 2A a little bit. Medium force, medium mitochondrial density. It is right in the middle of these two. Type 2X, think about a sprinter, think about a power lifter, think about somebody that's generating a lot of force in a quick amount of time. That's type 2X. They probably have a lot of these muscle fiber types or have trained these muscle fiber types a lot and kind of targeted their training around making these ones stronger. They are not fatigue resistant. They fatigue fast. They hit the wall fast. They can go for a few seconds to maybe a minute, maybe a little longer, and then they crap out. They are larger in nature, which means they can really put a lot of force output out there, a lot of power out there in a quick amount of time. These ones you can't grow. They're larger than the other two in nature, but with hypertrophy training, with muscular resistance training, you can grow them, make them even bigger. Again, we talked about high force, and then they have low mitochondrial density. They don't need to go and go and go for hours on end. They only need to work for, again, a few seconds, maybe a minute, maybe a little longer. And they don't really need to work anymore as far as like a sprinter or powerlifter goes, right? Their whole movement or their whole sprint is quick, so they don't need to work for very long as far as time goes. So those are the 3. We all have all 3 types in our body. We all have type 1, type 2A, and type 2X. The distribution of them, though, differs from person to person and from muscle to muscle. So what we all have in common, probably, is in regarding to our postural muscles. So some of your back muscles that keep you upright and your spine in place. You have your soleus, which is deep to your gastrocnemius. Your gastrocnemius is like your calf muscle that you could literally like pinch right here. Soleus is deep to that. It's a little deeper in there, and it helps with posture too. So for all of us, postural muscles don't really need to make a lot of force, right? They're typically smaller in nature. You don't really grow them. They're not large. They don't need a lot of force. But they do need to be fatigue resistant, right? We are hopefully keeping good posture all day long. Again, hours and hours and hours on end. So a lot of our postural muscles are largely composed of type 1 muscle fibers, right? Because we need them to be fatigue resistant. We like them to be smaller, right? More efficient in nature. We don't need a lot of force. We just need them to be able to work for us dependably, again, hours and hours and hours on end. So we kind of all have that in common as far as like certain muscles go. But generally, person to person, they are different. We have person 1 that might have 20% type 1, 20% type 2A, and 60% type 2X. That person has a lot more of these higher force output muscle fibers, and so they probably would be better suited as being like a sprinter or a power lifter, right? This person has 40% type 1, 40% type 2A, and 20% type 2X, so a lot less of this one. Pretty equal of these two though, so they have a lot of fatigue resistant muscle fiber types. They probably at least go more towards the side of being an endurance athlete. They're better suited for that. That's where kind of the term, the sport picks you. You don't pick the sport, right? Our muscles are composed of these muscle fiber types, so we're kind of better able to quickly become better at certain sports than others because of the way that we're kind of genetically made up. I like that term in a way because it makes a lot of sense in terms of this, but I also don't like that term because what we do day to day has a lot more impact than what genetically we have been made up of. So if you're this person, the more endurance based side person, but you do a lot of lifting, a lot of resistance strength, because you still have 20% of these, right? So you can still grow big muscles, 20% of those muscle fiber types, grow them big, make them really strong as far as force output goes and everything. You could still be a really badass sprinter. You could still be a really badass power lifter because of the way that you're training and targeting those muscle fibers with your training. Again, reverse. If you're this person, you're a type 2X and you're really strong, you have a lot of type 2X muscle fibers, but you run, and man, you swim, you still have put together 40% total of these type, and you're making them really strong. That doesn't mean you can't be a badass swimmer, a badass runner, because your training is targeting these muscle fiber types. So just because we're genetically predetermined, those muscle fibers are in us and we can't really change them, we can't convert type 2X to type 1 or type 1 to type 2A, we can't convert them. We can surely make the type 1s as strong as they can be as far as fatigue resistance, and we can surely make the type 2 as strong as they can be as far as force output, and then therefore making us better suited to be the athlete that we want to be in regard to whatever respective sport. So we can't really choose, but we can choose our training and target appropriately, if that makes sense.